Hello. All right. So today we're going to be talking about a more lighthearted topic, a bucket list. We're going to be talking about bucket lists today, specifically a Catholic bucket list. What to expect? Well, I guess there's nothing to expect. It's just talking about it. So I have a bucket list. There's things that I'd like to do that are specifically Catholic. And but before I go into that bucket list, I'd like to emphasize Exodus 90 is happening on the 20th. That's when it starts. If you would like to join my fraternity, please email me at modernpapist@gmail.com. This is for men, so you have to be 18 years or older. The group seems to be in the 20s and 30s, so in mid 20s to mid 30s. So that's the age range. If you do not live in the area, please, just let me know, and we will set up like a conference call to have those meetings. But besides that, we'll make sure everyone's involved as much as possible. As of right now, we have local people, and that's good. But if anybody wants to do it and is outside of the Metro Detroit area, that's fine too. So all right, so bucket list. So I was talking with my wife the other day, and I was like, I'd like to have this happen. Just once. I think that would be great to have. And she goes, "What do you have, like a Catholic bucket list?" And the more I thought about it, the more I actually do. There are several things that I'd like to happen in my life besides obviously living a saintly life and hopefully hearing the words good and faithful servant by God. Like, that's off the table because, like, obviously anybody who's Catholic should be striving for that. But there are some specific things that I think, I'd like to go over. So you need an intro video or something. Okay, so like that's hard because that costs money. So if I'm making money doing this, I will totally do it. But I'm making pennies for doing this, and that's fine. So all right, so let's go into some of I have 10 items I'm going to share on my bucket list. I do technically have more, but these are the 10 that I wanted to put down. And so let's start with number 10. Help St. Thomas More's head be placed in a faithful Catholic church. Now that's like quite a stretch. But that is something that I've always felt incredibly I'm sorry. My wife's getting it. Okay, fine. Sing a theme song for the first 7 seconds then. Okay. I'll try. That's not copyrighted. But so I've always felt very inclined to ask St. Thomas More to intercede on a variety of important occasions in my life. And when I heard that he's in an Anglican church, Anglican ecclesial community, right? So building that used to be a Catholic church, from my understanding. I could be wrong, but either way, he's in an Anglican building. Okay, his head is in an Anglican building. I do not know how that's possible. I don't understand why Anglicans treat him as a saint. But that is really weird to me because he died because he was against Anglicanism. Like, that's really weird. Hey, Hayes. So, all right. So that's number 10. Number 9 is be invited to a multi-million viewer podcast talking about Catholic marriage. That is a very particular one. Because I do think that Catholic marriages are just not talked about in the more secular sphere. Because, you basically have Matt Walsh, and he's kind of like put in a corner, and he'll get invited to things, and he'll talk about his marriage and his very Catholic perspective, and that's good. It's just, I'd like to do that too, because I'm not a millionaire, right? Like, I'm just a normal dude. And even though he has a background that's very similar, right now, people have a hard time relating to millionaires. Like that's, as opposed to the average person, even if they once were the average person. So it's that's kind of like a practical bucket list on my end. So let's see. People actually responded to the bucket to the first bucket list. No, you're right. Him being in Anglican hands is an absolute tragedy. Yeah, it's like, yeah, we're gonna screw you in life, and in death, we're gonna treat your body in a very weird way. Yes, Hayes, you should join us. It should be in the thing. I put it in the thing. It's so you asked how it's in the you email crap modernpapist@gmail.com, and then I'll send you an invite. Let's see if you can join us by having some remote stuff, reading Exodus. I like it. So I've got so much on my plate at the moment to do justice. Okay, yeah. Like, okay, so if you can't do it, don't. If you have too much on your plate, don't do it, because that would not be the greatest for not just you, but whoever your anchor is, potentially. So, if you got too much on your plate, that's fine. Maybe next year you can do it. All right. So I did 10 and 9, going on to 8. Have lunch with my bishop or archbishop. And so I currently live in the Archbishop of Detroit, or I'm sorry, the Archdiocese of Detroit. I'd love to have a meal. I say lunch, but it's really just a meal with the bishop or archbishop that is not the mass, right? Because like the mass is a meal. But like something where I can have a conversation with him and have engagement with my spiritual father that oversees everything in the diocese or archdiocese. So this could be if I happen to move, I have lunch with my bishop, in a diocese as opposed to an archdiocese. So that's number 8 for me. Number 7 is meet the Pope. And I think that, he's the head of the church, and in a similar vein in terms of like the lunch with the bishop and archbishop, he is the head of the church. Now, is there a particular person I wanted to meet? Like growing up, I wanted to meet John Paul II, in particular, but like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who the Pope is, just the Pope. Like that's what I care. That's what I care about. The next is kind of obscure for some people, but it's visit Old Testament prophets' tombs. So, and this came about when I was listening to what had it's not so much recent, but like 7 or 8 years ago, when the tomb of Jonah was destroyed by ISIS. That is something that was like, man, like if we have tombs of saints, of the patriarchs of the Old Testament, like, yeah, why not visit them? Like, I mean, if we're like, why not do a pilgrimage to their resting place? Like that seems like really cool, from both a standpoint of like spiritual, like a spiritual pilgrimage, but also to out of necessity, because we live in America and we have so much like good stuff over here, like in the sense that like like we have lush green trees in Michigan, like I don't want to say most of the year in the sense of like through winter. That's not true. Like a lot of our trees have lack their leaves right now, but man, like spring, summer, and fall, like it's beautiful. And it shows the vibrant nature of where we live, whereas like a lot of the Old Testament saints are buried in deserts, right? Like, so out of necessity of visiting them, you are going to this remote place that is out of the way. Now I'd have to find a list of them. Jonah, like the resting place of Jonah was destroyed, so that's that one's gonna be hard. but it's it's just that as something to try and do. That's what I would like to do. The fifth one is to go to Jerusalem. So I think obviously like where Christ walked, uh, go to all the major places in the Bible that we have located, that we know of, and to appreciate, in a similar vein to the Old Testament prophets, appreciate where where Jesus stood in his last days and then after. So, um, let's see. I have. All right. So you guys are talking about all your personal lives, and that's great. It's in relation to Exodus 90. I just don't want to throw them up there. Um, all right. Don't swear. But yeah, appeared out of nowhere when you did Exodus 90 the first time. It showed how much time he was wasting on junk. Now he just spends it on YouTube. Okay. Um, okay, yeah, that's true, but like it's like the vegetation was still much more drier. Like it wasn't as lush as over here in Michigan, right? Like but part of the problem with Michigan, like that we don't see now, that was here in the past, was the fact that for a lot of this area it was a swamp, and we've actually like turned it more into a forest area in some areas as opposed to like it maintaining its swampiness. So like when during the time of the French missionaries, it was said that a squirrel could jump from tree to tree from Mackinac down to Toledo. Like that's how dense the forests were, and like that's very different than the pictures of what um the ancient Middle East looks like. So but like I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying like it's the area is different. um uh okay, all right, so I'll get back to the list. So all right, going to Jerusalem. For go to confession in Ireland. So like this is kind of obscure. So like I come from a Polish and Irish lineage. So we have a Polish parish by us, Our Lady of Czestochowa, and everybody speaks Polish there. Like literally, like when you go read the pamphlets that are handed out at the end of Mass, it's in Polish. It's not in English, and so it's a pretty like it. They maintain that aspect to it. So it's like for me, it's fairly easy to experience a what do you call it, like a confession like that. And I know it seems weird, but this is more or less just a like very much a secondary thing. Like not I'm not gonna like what do you call it? I'm not gonna like sin to purposely go to confession by like an Irish priest or something. Like I'm not gonna do that. But if I can go to confession in Ireland, where my grandparents were, or I'm sorry, my great grandparents came from, like I'd like to do that. And so that's more of just a personal thing in relation to the church itself. Kind of obscure, but I would like to do the same with Poland. So I'm kind of clumping them together. But Poland, I have a much more like readily available um, experience and people to talk to that have a very heavy Polish background. So yeah, there's that. Third is visit Rome, which would probably coincide to meeting with the Pope, but maybe not. I don't know. But that I would like to visit Rome for, and I mean when I say visit Rome, I mean both the city of Rome in the jurisdiction of Italy and then also the Vatican. So it's both places. Um, let's see. Yep, the bathroom signs are even in Polish. All right, so and then number two is go on a pilgrimage to Our Lady of Champion, and that is something that, excuse me, that is something that I am trying to work out with Father Eric because we live in Michigan and Our Lady of Champion is in Wisconsin, and so it's not a terribly long drive. It is the only approved apparition in the United States of America. And I am a big believer in where Mary shows up, and especially when things are properly approved, that there's significance to that. And given that Our Lady of Champion has only existed as an approved apparition for it's going on 3 years, that is something that I would like to do. I'm born on uh, Our Lady of Guadalupe's feast day. I would love to go there, but I don't have it on my bucket list because it's more or less like just outside of like expectations. Um, frankly, because I don't, Mexico is not as safe as I'd like it to be. So, like, just being completely frank with it. Let's see. Um, okay. Okay. Oh, all right. So I want to go back to all the churches I saw in France in high school and look at them with Catholic eyes. So, which I'm incredibly jealous of that you were able to go to. Like, she went with band, and so like yeah, and just to be able to do that, I think would be really cool. Because there's a lot of churches in France. I mean, but you also have to be careful there, like with Mexico, because of the refugees and what's happening. Like France is having like hundreds of burnings of churches a year, um, or they were during the time of Notre Dame getting burned. So I don't know. I'd like to go see them. It's just as long as it's safe. And then the last thing on my bucket list is actually already accomplished and already done, but it is something that is very important to me, and that was to help with my wife's conversion. And so she converted in February of last year, and she's Catholic now, just as she pointed out, seeing Catholic eyes. So that has pretty much always been my number one since we've been married, and it happened last year, so that's good. Like, I'm trying not to get all like into it because I can get really happy and whatever. But it's too late to get happy, guys. Like, it's too late. So all right. Let's see. So yes. Also, so I went. So going to the French thing. Like, I remember watching it burning, and I was watching the prime minister give an address about what was going on as it was burning. And without an investigation, he's like, we don't know all the details. An investigation has to be done. But what we do know is that it was an accident. And I was like, hold up. What? Like, how do you know it's an accident if you don't have an investigation done? And like, why are you saying this like while it's still on fire? Like, like, if it was an accident, you'd be able to tell us who did it or what happened. But like, it was incredibly vague. And then when you saw the hundreds of fires and arson leading up to it in France, like in France, just before Notre Dame got burned, uh, there were hundreds of church burnings that year. And so, like, we're talking about the like most known cathedral in the world outside of the Vatican, probably St. Peter's. And you're going to tell me that that was just a complete accident even though you don't actually know the details of it. Like, give me a break. Like that doesn't make any sense. Um, so so yeah, like what gets me though is like trying to do the St. Thomas More thing. Like I'm kind of wondering like if the church or see I don't like calling it a church because they don't have the Eucharist. So it's an ecclesial community that is called Anglican. Their building had like has Thomas More's head. If they have some sort of like intense um like protection in case someone like steals it, because I mean it's a head, so it's not going to be super heavy. um but like if they have some safeguards in place, or else you can just like leave with it, like because I don't understand how it you would be able to just like I don't know. Am I suggesting someone just to steal his head? No, I'm not. So I don't want to give the impression that I am. But I'm just kind of curious as to why over 500 years, like that hasn't happened, or if it has happened, how it comes back to the Anglican ecclesial building. So, um, thank you for watching. I hope you got your bucket list, or you're at least thinking about your bucket list, and I'll see you on